The New Jersey Devils have begun their 2023-2024 campaign. My name is Lippy, and we're going to talk about the first two games this season. This is the Devils Weekly Roundup. Hello and welcome to the first episode of a new series I wanted to start here on YouTube, where basically I wanted to talk about the Devils Week every single Sunday and go over what I thought was good, what I thought was bad, and then just kind of give my thoughts. So let's dive into what happened this week. The Devils played a back-to-back home-home in which they began their season. The first game was a home opener versus the Detroit Red Wings, and on Friday they played the Arizona Coyotes. They won the first game in a 4-3 regulation win, and then the Coyotes, they lost 4-3 in the shootout. So I was actually at the home opener. It's a tradition that I do with my family where we go to the home opener every year. I have to say, the number one thing that I really loved was before the game going to the beer garden that's right by the Rock and just seeing the whole entire place filled. It was great seeing the fans there. The energy was high. Everybody was very excited. When he got into the building, it had the feelings of a playoff game. Everyone was excited. Everyone was looking forward to it. The cheers for Errol, the players were loud. Everyone was cheering for Lindy Ruff. It was great. Everyone was looking forward. And then the game started. So, let's start with a couple of the cons. The first con that is going to come up probably in the Coyotes game as well was the Devils had a slow start. They, I believe at one point, were down 7-0 in terms of shots versus the Red Wings. And it took them a little bit to go. The only person who was definitely on was Vanacek, which is great because, you know, when your team starts slow, your goaltending has to kind of bail them out, and Vitek was definitely bailing them out. The first goal that he let up was definitely not his fault. It was kind of a weird bounce that ended up just kind of getting by him. And then with the other goals that he gave up, I really wouldn't put him on Vitek. The other one was a power play goal. You know, power plays are going to let up goals when it happens. And the other one was an empty net. So, you know, not much he could do. Vitek overall looked really, really strong. So that was definitely the first con that I noticed was slow starts. And it kind of looked like core players like Dawson Mercer and Jesper Bratt specifically were not quite on. I don't know if maybe it had something to do with first game jitters. Maybe it was the later start. Who knows? They did not look as strong, at least for what we expect from them. The Timo Meier, Nico Hischier, and Dawson Mercer line definitely did not have as much juice going for them, especially when you compare them to the Jesper Bratt, Jack Hughes, and Tyler Toffoli line. I mean, that line was buzzing all night. But overall, the team was kind of slow to start. But as the game progressed, they definitely picked it up, and they ended up getting the win. Jack did what Jack does. He took over the game. He scored 2 goals, one being a below the goal line goal, and then the second one being a 5-on-5 goal, which, you know, it was great to see. Jack was doing Jack things. The un-Jack thing he did was he took 4 penalty minutes, one being a interference call, I believe it was, against more Siders, and then a slashing, which obviously was a slashing, but when someone's standing over you and you're trying to get up, I can understand the frustrations. But Jack was on fire that night. He got the team back in. Dougie gave him the lead, and then Eric Hollis sealed it with an empty net goal. Detroit obviously scored late, but they were not able to force overtime. Player that stood out to me during that game was definitely Alexander Holtz. I thought he made some really good passes. I thought he was pretty well in his own zone. He had one play where he lost control in his own zone, but luckily Detroit was changing, so he got away with it. I thought Holtz looked really good. He really stood out to me. And overall, the Devils won. It definitely wasn't the preseason that we saw where they were basically steamrolling every team, but they got back into it. Now, we're going to see some similar stories here with the Coyotes game as well. Once again, it was a slow start, and the Coyotes are definitely a team that has a lot of good young players, one being Logan Cooley, who I believe had an assist. Might have had a goal. I think he just had an assist. He was very good, and they have some pretty decent veterans as well on that team. So this is a team that's in a rebuilding phase, that knows they're in a rebuilding phase, and they are doing everything they can to kind of prove people wrong and basically build towards something. Kind of like what the Devils were doing a couple years ago. So they came out fast, they came out strong, and they got a 2-0 lead, and the Devils had to kind of basically fight back. From what I saw, Jesper Bratt had a much better game that night. He scored some great goals. Him and Jack were looking great. Dougie had another goal, and then I think Jesper had the third goal, which was one of them was a power play goal, which the power play has looked amazing. The passing has looked really good. They're generating chances. That looks good. But once again, they had another slow start, but Akira Schmid showed up, kept them in the game. They were able to fight back. They got the lead, but then unfortunately they took a penalty late, and I believe the Coyotes were able to tie it up and give full credit to the Arizona Coyotes goalie. I believe it's Vejemek. I have mispronounced that. Amazing goalie, and he absolutely stood on his head and got that win for the Coyotes. But are the Coyotes going to be a playoff team? No. Are the Coyotes going to frustrate teams? Especially a team like the Devils, who now has expectations, who now is going to be taken seriously night in and night out. Yeah, that's what the Coyotes are going to do to other teams. They are going to frustrate them. So what the Devils need to improve on is definitely their starts. They started slow. They need to start a little bit faster. And then it's just kind of minor things. I think the passing 5-on-5 is maybe a little too much sometimes. And I think the sticks are maybe just a little too tight. Who knows what it is, but this isn't a time to panic. The Devils obviously have a lot of expectations. They had a very good preseason. And, a lot of people are projecting them to do well this year. That's great. But basically, projections are great, but what you do on the ice matters. It's okay to have a slow start at the beginning of the year. The Devils, not playing their best hockey, won 3 out of 4 points to start the season. Last year, in the first 2 games, they had 0 points. So we have to kind of take everything with a grain of salt here. The Devils are going to get into the rhythm. The Devils are going to find their footing. And these problems that they're having will be addressed, and they will get better. So personally, as we look forward to next week, we have 2 games coming up. One being Monday versus the Florida Panthers, who were just in the Stanley Cup Finals. And then the next one being versus the Islanders. So we have 2 really good tests for the Devils with teams that play hard and who are probably going to be in that playoff race. So if you like this video, please like it. Please leave a comment. Please subscribe if you don't. And I will see you next week. My name is Lippy, and this was the Devils Weekly Roundup.